Hi everyone, my name's Kristen. I also go by Ms.Filmingo and welcome to today's video. Today I'm happy to share my interview with Peter McDowell. He is the director behind the documentary Jimmy in Saigon, which will be available on digital starting May 13th. Before we jump into our interview with Peter, let me give you all a quick rundown of the film. Jimmy in Saigon begins as a personal exploration into the mysterious death and radical life of Jimmy McDowell, a 24-year-old Vietnam veteran who died as a civilian in Saigon in the 1970s. Peter McDowell was only 5 when Jimmy died, and in his quest to get to know his brother, he uncovers a hidden romance, new family ties, and secrets surrounding Jimmy's drug use and sexuality. A story that takes viewers to Vietnam, France, and across the United States. Now that you all know a little bit about the film, let's go cut over to my interview with Peter. So I want to thank you so much, Peter, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with me. It's a great honor, and I believe you have a very beautiful film on your hands and a beautiful tribute to your brother that you did not get to know very well. I wish you got to know him because it seemed like you two would have gotten along very well.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so of course. So I before we jump into the film, I really want to get to know you as a filmmaker. So what inspired you to make this film and what inspired you to get into film and what documentaries have inspired you?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I've always loved film, since I was a little kid. And one of the things I explain in my film is that my brother Jimmy, who died in 1972 when I was 5 years old and he was 24, we didn't really know each other because he was mostly out of the house before he died in Vietnam. But he had made some little short films, and so I grew up watching his films. My family was very into photography and particularly slides, and so we would have slideshows. I used to put slideshows together with music, which is sort of a rudimentary way of creating multimedia production. And as soon as I could get my hand on a movie camera, I started making little movies. I sort of took a break for a while, but then in graduate school at University of Wisconsin, I took a filmmaking class, made a few films, and one of those films that I made in class went on to play at film festivals all over the world. And so I started getting really encouraged. People said, like, you have a talent for this, you should keep working on it. At the same time, I had a full-time jobs, and filmmaking is a real challenge. So I put it in the back of my mind. But my friend Dan Savage, who ended up being one of the executive producers of the film, who many people know, Dan is a well-known sex advice columnist and author, TV personality. Dan had always encouraged me to make this film, and right around 2010, I had a little bit of extra time in my life, and that period was what I call the great democratization of filmmaking because HD video cameras, which look very beautiful, they look like film, they can look like film, became accessible economically. So I bought a used HD camera, sound equipment, and I started to travel the world to try to meet everybody who knew my brother, and interview them, and also to walk in his footsteps.
And one thing I loved about this documentary is that everybody was so vulnerable. Everybody was able to open up. So take me back to that time where you were sitting with your nephew, your mom, your sister, everybody who became so close to you. What was it like sitting with everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying to someone else that I grew up thinking I had a dysfunctional family, and then I started learning about other families, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, pretty good. We used to go on a couple family vacations every year. And my parents were really big galvanizers of the family, and I think they just sort of, unfortunately, they kind of missed out when my brother died because there wasn't much there wasn't much that was known about grief and mourning at the time. I think the idea was, just be strong and move on. But at a certain point, we all realized that there was a reckoning to be had, that there was this mystery that none of us could solve about our brother and why he went back to Vietnam, how he died, why he died. And so the experience of talking it through with my mom and my siblings was very moving to me. It was very it was a formative part of my life to be able to sit down with them. Initially they were hesitant. My mom, she went back and forth. She, it's funny, interesting about documentaries that sometimes the best moments don't even make it on camera.
Yeah.
Like it's a time where she said to me, I don't understand why you're doing this. It's not going to bring him back, and um but then there were other moments where she was calm and really into it. And yeah, I mean, I think that for us it was just I think everybody realized it was necessary to talk through this and to try to get to a new place in our family.
Sounds like a good therapy session for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, so everyone basically in the documentary had positive things to say about your brother. What was the most surprising thing that you learned about your brother?
Well, first of all, my goal of making the film was not as family therapy. It was to make a work of art, a work of cinematic art that people
Yeah.
would enjoy, as a compelling story. And I don't view my brother as a hero necessarily or a perfect person. He had a lot of flaws, like
Mhm.
everybody.
Yeah.
I think that I'm trying to think of the most surprising thing, but I mean, I think I there's some surprising things that get revealed in the film that I don't want to spoil
Yeah,
in terms
no
of
spoilers
spoilers.
here.
But I will say like the tenacity that he had. I mean, I suppose you could say that I had a lot of tenacity in making this film. Like it took me 12 years to finish it, and we've been touring it for 3 years. But I think that he had a little bit of that same tenacity when he was like, I'm gonna, I was in the military in Vietnam. He came back, he's like, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna live in that place. And that was very unusual at the time. And the more I learn about it, the more I learn what a crazy and a bold idea it was to go back and live in a war zone in wartime. So that's one of the things that kind of surprises me about how he had the fortitude to do that.
So one thing that also struck me was there's some beautiful animation that we see. I thought that was beautiful. It looks like it's like watercolor in a way. Can you discuss incorporating that into the film?
Yeah, I always wanted to have animation in the film. I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to use it, but I was looking for various animators, and we eventually found a gentleman in Saigon whose name is Treat Lay, and I only met him virtually after I had been to Vietnam, so I haven't met him in person yet. But he did a wonderful job of creating these little animation vignettes that help us kind of glimpse into the world that Jimmy was in back then. And without giving too much away, I liked the idea of taking a still photograph and having making that photograph come to life. So that was part of our goal. A lot of documentaries use animation these days, but
Mhm.
it was something that was with me from the beginning with the conception of it, and I'm really glad we did. And I'm glad we found such a great person who used this very kind of old style, like you said, watercolor type imagery.
It's so beautiful to see, and I love the last scene at the end of the film where it's used. It's so beautiful, and it ties everything together so perfectly. My final question for you is, what do you hope audiences take away after seeing Jimmy's in Saigon?
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a divisive time right now, and we weren't as much when I started making the film. So I think I lived it. I think I felt like we had already won this battle where queer people, LGBTQ people were accepted by their families and where we could be all treated as equals. I think that that's definitely a topic in the film, like, acceptance, familial acceptance, and how damaging and dangerous it is when parents or families don't accept their LGBTQ children. I mean, I'm especially appalled at what's happening with transgender people in this country, how they're being, transgender people, like the kindest, nicest people in the world, are being demonized. It makes zero sense to me. So, I do hope that this film helps families realize that, everyone has to be kind to each other and listen to each other and really like stick together as a family, which is what we try to do. So from a social point of view, that's what I hope people get out of it. Beyond that, I hope that they're kind of transported back into this world, this hidden world of Saigon in the early 70s. And I hope people travel to Vietnam and enjoy it the same way I did and my brother did.
That's going to wrap up my interview with Peter McDowell. Please be sure to check out his film, Jimmy in Saigon, available on digital May 13th. This also concludes today's interview. Please be sure to like, comment, and share this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and don't forget to follow me on socials. The links are provided down below. And I will see you all next time. Bye!